Welcome back, friends. More 1975 Shovelhead shenanigans. Today we're going to focus on working on getting off the gas tanks. This is a little more involved process. I did go through and remove as much of the fuel as I could as possible, and I'll walk you through that process after I move the camera. This is a job that's going to take a little bit of time here, so we're going to run through this as slowly as possible and give you as much detail as to what I'm doing and show you the how-tos when it comes to taking off the gas tanks. Okay, when it comes to removing gas tanks, a couple of tools that you will need: a flathead screwdriver, socket wrench, a few half-inch wrenches, a couple of half-inch sockets, and some different types of extensions. And you'll see why we need all those things in a minute. Now, looking at the gas tanks themselves, there is a process when it comes to removing these. First, we want to start and make sure that we have the tanks emptied. And I've gone through and done that, and now I have shut the fuel off at the petcock here. On the right side of the motorcycle, obviously you will see that the fuel line runs all the way across, and I have put a rag down because there will be some residual fuel that leaks out of the line and out of the carburetor itself. I'm going to go and pull the line here and let it rest, and that rag will soak up any fuel that does leak out. The first place that you'll start when it comes to removing the gas tanks themselves is to remove the dash. Now, there's a single bolt in the dash here with a nut on the end of it typically. And I've seen all kinds of different styles or setups in order to hold the dash in place, from wing nuts to multiple spikes and different crazy things. Thankfully on this one we have a nylock nut here, and it's just one single nut. We'll go ahead and we'll back that off and then pull the dash out of the way. With the nylock nut and the washer out of the way, next you'll start to tip the dash up a little bit, and it will come from the front backwards in this type of a motion, and it'll hang up a little bit, so you may have to rock it a little just to get it out of the way. One thing you'll notice is the trip reset. This was missing on this motorcycle. If this is in place, you will have to unthread this and pull it out. And sometimes they are stuck, so sometimes you'll have to finagle the dash around that as well. But thankfully, this one wasn't that much of a process. From here, in between the two tanks, these are a split tank setup. There's a tank on the left and a tank on the right, and they are held in place by a series of bolts. There are two on some frame ears here. This is where your seat post would connect, and then your inner tank connects here. These should be a half-inch bolt. We'll want to go ahead and start loosening those up just a little bit. With that loose, we can move to the other side here, which is the other side top nut, and we'll loosen that a little bit. Often when working on this top mount, you will need both your socket wrench and your regular wrench to hold the nut and bolt in place. With the top mount loose, we'll move on to the bottom mount. Underneath in the front side right here, you can probably see it maybe just a little bit. Underneath the left and right tank, there are two points here that connect together on another frame horn. So we'll want to go ahead and loosen that up as well. As you can see on the right hand side, there's a long stud here. There's a nylock nut, and they're kind of a pain in the butt to get to. So I have a long socket here. I should be able to get on that just enough to turn it. Getting a wrench in here is almost impossible. I may need to get a second socket wrench. Sometimes with the limited space and working area, it does make sense to get a second socket wrench. I've got one on each side. This way I can finagle this a little bit. Now you're probably asking yourself, why in the world would you loosen all those up before taking anything off? And I'll tell you from experience, I have fought these things that have been welded on, rusted in place, and just plain stuck. So you kind of want to see what you're dealing with before you start kind of getting into it, and then you get stuck and you've got half a tank hanging. I wanted to make sure that all of those points were able to come off, and thankfully they are. We're going to focus first on removing the right side tank. So the next thing I want to do is I want to undo this crossover line here. And there's also one on the top. And I'll show you how to get to that in a moment here. But first, I want to get this one undone. I'm going to lay down another hog mat here because fuel will ultimately drain from this side as well. And we're trying not to make a fuel mess. The nice thing with having these hog mats is they'll catch the fuel and I can dispose of those properly. With my mat in place, I'll use my flathead screwdriver to undo this hose clamp. And hopefully I can pull this down. As I said, there was going to be a bunch of fuel on this side, and of course there is. All right, thank goodness for the hog mats. As you can see, I made a giant mess. There was still quite a bit of fuel sitting in the fronts of the tanks, and that did not come out. This isn't sitting at a good angle. It's sitting pretty flat, so unfortunately I had a lot of fuel in there. Made a huge mess. Caught most of it, so I'll be able to dispose of these. I'll pull the bottom ones out there as well, and I'll be able to dispose of those too. But again, we're going to work on getting this right side tank off first. Typically, when you're looking at these types of bikes, you will see the top bolt, the bottom bolt will be threaded through in the same direction. Usually, they're threaded through from left to right, and the nut is on this side, and that way it allows for the right tank to come off easier. Unfortunately, this bolt is fished through to the left and the bottom one is fished through to the right. So it is what it is, but I'm going to go ahead and finish loosening up this bottom bolt here. Then I'll work on the top one, and then I will work on the inside back one. With the bottom bolt removed, we'll go ahead and we'll work on removing the top bolt here. This one's easily accessed with a socket wrench and with a standard wrench. Again, both 1/2 inch in size. Now that I'm looking at this more closely and I see that the top mount here is damaged, I'm actually going to take off the left side tank first. For me, that's going to be path of least resistance, and it's going to be a little bit easier. This bolt is holding in the right side tank, and its mount is complete. This one has been brazed and repaired, looks like quite a few times. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to loosen up this top crossover vent tube here, and then I will take out the back mount bolt. As you can see, there's a vent tube that runs across from tank to tank, and this keeps the tanks flowing fuel between the two. So these will have to be undone here. So we'll loosen up this hose clamp, hopefully enough to be able to push it out of the way. Thankfully, that hose is very supple and it does move. Next, on the inside here on this side, there is a 1/2 inch bolt that runs through into the tank. I'm going to go ahead and start loosening that now. And as you can see, the bolt that was in there was way too long, and they used quite a few of these spacers. What you'll see happens with these a lot of times is someone will use the wrong size bolt. They'll run it in all the way and they'll actually poke a hole in the inside of the tank, and it will cause a leak at the back here. Thankfully, someone was smart enough to put spacers in here, and hopefully they hadn't done that. I don't remember seeing a leak on the back side here on either side of the tanks, so I believe that they're in good shape. With all of the hardware removed, I should be able to pull this tank gently in this direction towards myself, and it is free. Obviously, the one thing we're going to run into is the couple of lines that will have to snake through between the cylinders. And then, of course, from the other side there, some residual fuel could leak out. And try to hold those out of the way and not let that happen. And of course, looking at the left side of the bike, you can see a lot of this is very original in here and it has not been tampered with. We do have a mouse nest in here. On the right side tank, you can see that the lower tab has been repaired. It's a common issue with these bikes. They did vibrate a ton, and unfortunately, if they were not tightened up properly and the hardware wasn't on properly, they did vibrate and they would break on those tabs. As you can see on the frame here, there's these two horns. This is where your seat T would mount, and this is where your tank mounts are. And as you can see, this is the one I was loosening on this side and this side to get this tank to come apart. I'm going to work on getting this one all the way out, but I'm going to do that from the other side so I don't drop the tank. What you'll want to do is you'll want to support the tank underneath so it doesn't create too much tension on that rear bolt. Now with the rear stud removed, this was a long one as well. All I have to do is pull the top stud here, and then this tank is ready to come out. Well, friends, as you can see, it's kind of an involved process when it comes to removing the gas tanks. I made a giant mess. I did spill fuel everywhere, and of course I had to change because I had fuel all over my clothing. Thankfully, I have my hog mats down and I was able to capture a ton of fuel, and I'll be disposing of those properly soon. The bike is coming apart nicely. You can see the different steps that are going on here, and some are going to be more involved than others, and I'll show you those processes. Thankfully, so far, the bike hasn't fought me a whole lot, but I'm sure we'll run into some issues where we do struggle. Making a mess is part of the deal. You know, you're going to get gas all over, you're going to get oil all over, you're going to have whatever substance all over, so be prepared for that. Well, friends, as always, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have questions, comments, or any kind of commentary, drop in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're really enjoying these videos, hit that subscribe button. Help my channel out, help me grow this thing. I really appreciate you guys sticking around, appreciate you guys subscribing, and of course talking about the projects that I have going on. I do hope that this project is helpful to you. And of course, if it is, and you're looking for other insights as far as how to do this, that, or the other on this bike, I'm going to be removing each one of these pieces individually and producing a video to show that process. That way you guys can see it firsthand from a point of view perspective on how to do those projects. Well, friends, as always, I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. We'll catch you next time.